So recording's in progress. So welcome. Time is 5:58. Couple of minutes to 6, but let's get started. We are we're reading Sankalpa Kaumudi and continue our reading, and we are on chapter 6. We're going to finish chapter 6 today. Definition of sadhana. We're just the last couple of pages. Now, if I'm not mistaken, or if I am mistaken, you have to let me know, because last week I was at the end, I was a little bit inattentive, and I think I might have put my bookmark in the wrong place, but I'm pretty sure, I think we're on page 112.
110.
10.
No, 111. And I have a marker.
So where's your marker, Chandravali?
It says, therefore, sadhana bhakti means to engage the mind.
Yeah, but you need to tell me the page number.
Yeah, 111.
111.
111. Well, that's way out. 111. Oh, no, it's only the page before.
Yeah, it's not that far.
111. Okay, let me just backtrack on the slide here. See where I am. Okay. Okay, 111. Okay, so I'll just try and recap. The definition of sadhana. Maharaj was speaking about the importance of being aware of our sadhya, or sadhya meaning perfection, and then the specific sadhana that we practice will be in line with our particular aspired perfection. So in other words, it's not just a general desire to go back to Godhead, although that might be there good in the beginning, but generally as we advance, then it might become more specific. And Maharaj gave some examples of the specific goal that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave, which I think is spontaneous devotional service as is practiced by the residents of Vrindavan. So an overall example of a sadhya is that. And so now Maharaj is defining sadhana, and he will define it in regards to achieving that goal ultimately. So that was part of what we discussed last week, with some other points as well. If anyone's taking notes so you can remember, you always can bring it. If anyone can remember something from last week, if you took any notes, you can feel free to share.
Well, I was just reading this one, Murli Prabhu, the one that says, well, I've just highlighted when I was reading before we started this, the pure love for Krishna is internally established in the heart of living entity. It is not something to be gained from another source. When the heart is purified by hearing and chanting, this love naturally awakens. So, you know, we really have to, as you say, how we chant, how we hear, how we do all those practice. So it'll waken up itself whenever it's ready, you know. Yeah,
very good. And that's, I think, Maharaj is quoting from the Nectar of Devotion, it sounds like there. And Maharaj will speak more details about that. I think we brought it up slightly last week. He goes a bit more deeper into that today.
Yeah.
You know, I won't give the game away, but he will go more deep into it.
We need the nectar, please.
So let's just see who's with us today. Let me bring up the participants. Welcome, everyone. Hare Krishna. Just one question. Can you see it says participants?
Yeah.
You can?
10. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you can't see it.
We can see it still.
You can see it still?
10 participants, yeah.
Like in my slide?
Oh, not in your slide.
Not in your slide. We just have to click it. And then
like now? Now can you see it in my slide? No.
No.
Okay, very good, very good. I'm just checking some technicalities there. All right, let's see who's here. As I said, we have Samudhara Koroni Mai, Gopi Gita, Anupama. I think the mother who joined us first time last week. Just remind me her name again.
Jambavati.
Jambavati.
Yeah, Jambavati. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, mother, welcome. Suniti Priya, Mother Lavanga, Anupama, Sachari. Okay, some more will probably be coming. Okay, let's not waste any precious time. So Sahachari has a hand up. We're on page 111. Chandravali, you know, oh, Mother Sahachari, I'm sure she will.
I wanted to just say something.
Yes.
What we heard before was about sadhana and sadhya. So goal and your sadhana.
Yeah.
So we
yeah.
have to have our goals and then our sadhana follows. So we have to then act according to what the goals were. So say
we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. So if we want, our goals are to go back to Goloka Vrindavan, then our sadhana is like hearing, chanting.
Yeah, about that. And I think Marge gave the example, like then we might visit Vrindavan. That might be our place of pilgrimage rather than Dwarka. It doesn't mean we're not allowed to go to Dwarka.
No. But that's
but for example, someone who's aspiring for Raj Bhakti, then that will be their place of pilgrimage, and that will be favorable for the development of Raj Bhakti to go and hear from Dina Bandhu Prabhu. Yeah.
Yes. And you also meditate on Rajbasis, like pastimes, these things like
that. Ultimately, as we've been discussing in Sudha Bhakti Chintamani, as our bhakti becomes more steady and we're somewhat free, we've gone somewhat free from anarthas and our practice is steady, then that allows us to more, say, so-called more deeply meditate and cultivate that type of attachment.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to recap in my head.
Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So was it very long? Because my computer went block, so I didn't hear it. Just came in now.
No,
Chandravali.
Much the same as what I said in the beginning. Chandravali just re-emphasizing.
I just wanted to say it in my own way so I can get it into my head.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. I just thought I might have missed something. That's why.
When you repeat something, you seem to understand it. And
yeah, that's a good way of remembering things, actually.
You see, because when
like in your own words,
Sanskrit words, I try and change them to English words and get it into my thinking.
Yeah. Same with something. Okay, so let's set sail, shall we? And see where we go in the ocean of Hare Krishna Dhamma. So
Prabhu, I always ask this question. I just wanted to ask you, Prabhu, if you are always inclined to go to Mayapur, so what will happen then?
well, Marge, Marge has been speaking of this a few times. I think, as we have mentioned before, if it so happens that you're developing specific attachment to a Gauranga, over and above attachment to Krishna, then you'll go to, if you reach perfection, you'll go to Svetadweep, where Lord Gaura is enacting these pastimes of Sankirtan with his eternal devotees. But that Sankirtan will be imbued with the mood of Raj Bhakti. So, yeah.
As you mentioned before, it's in case like you want both, so you land up in both places.
Amazingly and inconceivably, that is what is described.
Okay.
Go both. Don't ask me exactly how that happens. But this is the spiritual energy, and in one sense, not anything goes, but it's different dimension, and so these things are possible. So we might not be able to comprehend it exactly. All right. Okay, Sahachari, you can. Yeah. Page 111 for those who have the textbook at home and you want to follow.
Thank you. Therefore, sadhana bhakti means to engage the mind and the senses in some kind of work or activity on Krishna's behalf. Later in the book, we describe in detail the subject of the mind and enabling its willful engagement in sadhana. The definition next establishes the goal of sadhana. It says, sadhya bhava. Sadhana bhakti is that by which love of Godhead is acquired. The word love here means the seed of love, bhava bhakti. When bhava matures, it becomes full-blown love, prema. From seed, a flower first transforms into a bud and then gradually blossoms to reveal its full beauty and fragrance. So it is with the development of love from within the heart to bhava and then prema. The nature of this love is described further in the verse Nitya Siddhasya Bhavasya Prakatyam Hridi. The meaning is that Bhava Bhakti is an eternal reality which, via sadhana bhakti, manifests itself within, not into the heart of the earnest practitioner. The implication of the term Nitya Siddhasya meaning eternally present or eternally accomplished is that sadhana bhakti does not mechanically generate bhava by devotional activities of the senses. Rather, sadhana bhakti qualifies the candidate for perfection. It invokes what is already present in the way water causes a seed to sprout while being neither the cause of the seed nor the resulting tree. Eternally present also implies that only bhakti can manifest bhakti. Srimad Bhagavatam states this truth as bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya in the verse quoted earlier, which because of its importance is repeated here. The devotees of the Lord constantly discuss the glories of the personality of Godhead among themselves. Thus, they constantly remember the Lord and remind one another of his qualities and pastimes. In this way, by their devotion to the principles of Bhakti Yoga, the devotees please the personality of Godhead, who takes away from them everything inauspicious. Being purified of all impediments, the devotees awaken to pure love of Godhead, and thus, even within this world, their spiritualized bodies exhibit symptoms of transcendental ecstasy, such as standing of the bodily hairs on end. The verse explains that when the Lord is pleased by the sadhana of his devotees, he blesses them with ecstatic devotion. As a result, Bhava Bhakti makes itself known within the heart and spreads its influence throughout the body, bringing about various divine transformations. This is the meaning of the word prakatyam, the awakening. How this process takes place is described in the next chapter. Finally, Rupa Goswami says, such is the potentiality, sadhyata, of sadhana bhakti. The definition of potential is having or showing the capacity to develop into something in the future. While more will be said about this topic later, it should be considered that it also implies that the definition of potential is that it may not develop into something in the future.
Okay,
Sadhana bhakti,
there.
yeah.
We'll just have a reflection there. Everyone followed the flow there. There's one sentence which Marge will elaborate. That's what he's saying more in that that sadhana bhakti, like we do sadhana bhakti, which means we engage our senses in the service of the Lord, but it doesn't mechanically generate bhava. In one sense, that's obvious. It's not like it's not something material. It's completely down to the grace of Krishna. So you can do as much sadhana as you like, but if Krishna doesn't want to give you bhava, then he won't give you for whatever reason. Normally he likes to give. But you understand? So this is where this is also this kripa comes in. Because you can do as much sadhana as you like, but it's not like a material activity where if you do something like, I'll give a mundane example. If you want to learn to play a musical instrument, the more you practice, then the more you'll learn to play that musical instrument. If you practice 4 hours, 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day, then the more you will become proficient. But sadhana is not like that. Although the process is to engage our senses in Krishna's service, it's not just a mechanical thing where if I do a certain amount of hours sadhana, I'm going to get bhava in 2 years and 7 days from now.
I love that.
Doesn't work like that. It completely is very, very personal. It's very, very spiritual. Spiritual means it doesn't act according to the material laws. So, but as Maharaj then went on to say, but having said that, mercy will come to someone who's earnestly practicing sadhana. But their internal mood is the most important, or their internal aspiration for bhava is the most important. Yeah. So, in one sense, that highlights someone who's perhaps not so, I could say perhaps not so knowledgeable, a bit more not so advanced in devotional service. Sometimes they may come to the conclusion, I've done so much devotional service, I've cleaned the floor, I washed the pots for so many years. Krishna, it's not fair. Where's I'm cashing in? Where is the? That's kind of an exaggerated example, but that might be there subtly. So the idea is if we're not feeling any specific, because Maharaj is making a point here, sadhana's practice to achieve something. It's not just sadhana for sadhana's sake. Sadhana's done to achieve bhava. And if we may not be experiencing that bhava, then that should initiate deeper dependence on kripa. Understand? We become more deeper, as we be more want Krishna's mercy, Krishna's mercy or the devotee's mercy. Yeah. Anything else on this, on that?
So I was thinking to get Krishna's mercy.
Something, Prabhu. Sorry.
1 second, just let Chandravali finish it, then you can next.
Okay, I was thinking that we have, like you were saying, you depend internally. So to get Krishna's mercy, you have to act in a way that pleases Krishna.
Yeah, but that acting also means with your subtle body.
Yes.
It means
yes.
you're desiring it. It's not just external. It's not just you're doing, as I say, it's not some mechanical thing. You're just doing with your senses what you're supposed to do. You know, you're supposed to develop a yearning for it. It should be a, and it so happens that if one does sadhana, then most devotees who practice sadhana sincerely, they all come to this point of realizing they need kripa. Yeah, they need mercy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Comes a, yeah, Mara calls it a glass ceiling. Come to this point. But anyway, we could speak the whole hour on this point, but Maharaj will speak more details in the next chapter about how sadhana invokes bhava. It's a very interesting discussion. Yeah.
Right.
Nimai Mata, did you have a question there? I heard your voice.
Prabhu, I was just thinking about that story when Narada Muni came, Cobbler and the Brahmana story.
Yeah.
So do you think, Prabhu, that can have some
Yes.
relationship with this?
Yeah, perhaps you can describe how it has a relationship quickly.
Because he was, Brahmana was doing all sadhana, everything. I'm doing all worship, everything. How can I don't go to Goloka Vrindavan?
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Yeah, he was doing all the externals.
And
but,
he is in his mind, he is very proud that I have been doing. But the other cobbler is very humbly just making the shoes, you know, mending the shoes. That's all. But he is totally humbly thinking, God.
Yeah, that's a nice example. I'm just thinking the play that the Manadu, isn't it? Have you seen that?
Yeah, Yeah.
Govinda Choya Choya, Govinda Choya Choya. Banging
Murli,
tune.
Murli,
Yeah,
Murli
but
Prabhu,
that's
can I?
one point, yeah, but that's a very good example actually, because he was doing the externals, doing the prayers, doing his sandhyas, doing everything, but he had the wrong attitude.
Yeah.
So not, again, emphasis not just by mechanically engaging in sadhana without the correct internal disposition.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also the brahmanas and the wives of the brahmanas.
Another example, yeah, the wives of the brahmanas and the brahmanas themselves doing everything in a very Paka Vedic way, but wrong attitude. The internals wasn't there, but their wives, you know, they're not doing Vedic sacrifices. They're making cow dung patties. They're you know, taking care of their babies. They're making yogurt, you know, but they obtained Krishna Balaram's mercy because their internal disposition was in line. Yeah. All right, let's finish this chapter, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, one more page, page 113. Yeah, I just want to try some. I just want to show you something here. See it work. You see this here? I've found a new toy on my computer. See, I'm underlying this here.
Yes.
Yeah. This statement will come up again and again and again. Marge mentions this. Bhaktya sanjataya bhakta. So bhakti leads to bhakti. So just keep that in mind as we're reading through the next few pages. Yeah. Bhakti comes from bhakti. Yeah. Okay. Someone like to read, take us to finish this chapter, page 113. Anupama, you have your hand up there. So,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry, Prabhu, where am I starting from? From
Page
top.
113.
Okay. Sadhana Bhakti itself, an eternal spiritual potency, certainly possesses the potential to develop into bhava bhakti. However, if it is not done justice by the sadhya, then bhava bhakti may not manifest. In this light, the word potentiality implies that to reach the goal of the practices, a practitioner must have the desire to attain bhava. Daily practices must be done with a yearning for Krishna's aesthetic service. As stated earlier, sadhana is not a mechanical process for awakening bhava. Srila Prabhupada further explains potentiality, sadhya, in this way. This practice is not for developing something artificial. For example, a child learns or practices to walk. This walking is not unnatural. The walking capacity is there originally in the child, and simply by a little practice, he walks very nicely. Similarly, devotional service to the Supreme Lord is the natural instinct of every living entity. So this consciousness, though lying dormant in those who are materially contaminated, is found in every living entity. And when purified, this is called Krishna consciousness. Because every living entity is a part of Krishna, they have his same Satchit Ananda nature, but in minute quantity. Such is the potentiality of sadhana bhakti, that it extracts that same spiritual nature. However, for sadhana to achieve that goal, it must be pure, meaning it must be free from desires for liberation and sense gratification. Let us again review the eternal glories of pure devotional service, both in practice and in ecstasy. Sadhana bhakti and bhava bhakti, like prema bhakti, are eternal truths. Love of God, sought after by both kinds of sadhakas, conditioned and liberated, is the wealth of the eternally perfect and the auxiliary with which they enchant the object of love, Shri Krishna. The unlimited expressions of love for Krishna displayed by his associates are called acts of devotion. That is bhakti. The Vaikuntha messengers revealed this truth to Gopal Kumara. In Vaikuntha and elsewhere, the transcendental nature of devotional activity spontaneously shows itself in this suitably formed Satchit Ananda bodies of the Lord's devotees, bodies composed of limbs and senses. When acts of devotion are dutifully emulated by conditioned soul, free of material motive, Krishna becomes merciful. He eventually blesses the practitioner so that the seed of love within his heart may sprout and grow, manifesting its influence throughout his being. In this way, a devotee gradually attains the perfection of life.
Okay,
Haribol.
Hare Krishna. So any reflections there?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I don't have a reflection, but I have a question. Is that okay?
Yeah, reflections, questions. Or...
Okay. This means the seed is, they're talking about the Bhakti Lada beej, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
So is this beej already in every living entity's heart, or how does it get there?
Yeah, I mean, that's why Marge is quoting Kriti Satya Pravachyatya Bhavasasanadiba Nityayuktasya Bhavasya Prakatim Kriti Satyata. So that seed is there, and sadhana is the, or sadhana bhakti is the potentiality for awakening that love. So it's there because we are parts and parcels of Krishna.
Okay.
Yeah.
In animals, it's there, is it?
Every jiva.
Oh, okay.
Every jiva.
All right.
So that's the potentiality. It's like, just like, and Marge is quoting from the Nectar of Devotion. Just like if you teach a child to walk, the only reason the child will walk because the capacity is already innate in there, in the child. It's just a case of encouraging it to come out.
Okay.
If you try, we speak this when we teach Nectar Devotion, like, but if you try and teach a dog to walk on two legs, good luck. It's not innate. It's not innate within the dog. It doesn't have the capacity, but because we're parts and parcels of Krishna, we have the capacity because we're parts and parcels of him. So yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So yeah, Marge is just mentioning there as well. Good to, he's referring to Anyabalas Sunyam. So in order for this bhava to develop, one must be free of ulterior motives. In other words, that should be ultimately the only thing you desire in your life. Yeah. So you know, we can desire to eat. We have to, in this Nectar Devotion discussion, we have to desire the basic needs in life. We need desire to pay the bills, you know, desire to, you know, whatever, desire to clean the house, desire, you know, that doesn't contradict, that doesn't mean you're full of material desires. Okay? You know, just the basic desires to live is the desires to exist in this world is okay. I don't know if that makes sense, but just in case people, I can have no desire. I cannot desire to wake up in the morning. I cannot desire to cross the road. I should have no, doesn't mean that. I'm exaggerating a bit. All right, shall we go into a bit of a technical chapter, but there's more technical chapters coming, so get ready. This is one, chapter 7, Circular Causality. Yeah, let's just, I was going to try and explain circular causality. I think we get the idea. Circular causality, or let's read and perhaps we shall get the idea of where Marge is coming from, what he's speaking about here. So, Chandravali, Mavi, you like to read?
Yeah. The definition of devotion establishes bhakti as an eternal divine potency of the Lord. As such, it follows that devotional service cannot be generated by any material activities, and when it manifests, it does so by no cause other than itself. When the Vaikuntha messengers first meet Gokumar, they explain this principle to the boy in the following ways. You should not consider devotional service merely an activity of the body, senses, and the mind. It is in fact the eternal absolute reality manifesting itself as the most intense ecstasy beyond the material modes. The self-manifesting nature of devotional service has been mentioned in earlier chapters, wherein we have quoted the principles of bhaktya, sanjataya, bhaktya, the one you were saying,
Yeah.
that devotion is awakened by devotion. Bhakti by bhakti, okay. The natural conclusion of these truths is that transcendental devotional service in perfection is awakened only by transcendental devotional service in practice. However, to the materialist or to the uninformed devotee, there is an apparent contradiction within the definition of sadhana bhakti. Rupa Goswami's definition seems to imply that physical action gives rise to transcendental devotion. To respond to this doubt, let us begin by looking at that definition again.
Yeah, just a quick pause there so we understand where it could be misunderstood. In other words, by engaging in the activities of bhakti, let me just, the self-management nature has been mentioned earlier chapters where we quoted the principle of bhakti. Devotions awaken by devotion. The natural conclusion of these truths is that transcendental devotional service in perfection is awakened only by transcendental devotional service in practice. Okay, perhaps I'll keep quiet. Let's just keep reading.
No, that's good because it's what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, that's what I've just lost my train of thought. Yeah, so the prescription is given to engage our senses in the service of the Lord. Yeah, but actually, that should not be misunderstood. That it's, as I said, that it's a mechanical thing. Yeah, let's read on. You can carry on reading, Jonathan. I lost my train of thought a bit there. Excuse me.
Okay. When transcendental devotional service, by which love for Krishna is attained, is executed by senses, it is called sadhana bhakti, or the regulative discharge of devotional service. Such devotion eternally exists within the heart of every living entity. The awakening of this eternal devotion is the potentiality of devotional service in practice. Someone may challenge with the following argument: how can something material like the practice of sadhana give rise to something spiritual like bhakti? Moreover, how can the physical activities of sadhana generate bhava bhakti, which is transcendental?
Yeah, so this is the essence of the main theme of this chapter. Yeah, so the physical activity of sadhana, it is a physical activity. So how and what way does it generate bhava? Yeah.
Well, I don't understand this bit. Like practicing sadhana is material. How can something material?
Well, in a sense, that our senses, like our senses are material. Right. And say with our senses we're cleaning the temple room. The room is material. The temple room is marble. It's all material. You know, it's not transcendental. But of course, from an ultimate point of view, everything's transcendental. But from our relative point of view, it's just the senses. So what is it of that activity of sadhana? How does it give rise to bhava, which is completely transcendental?
Yes, that's what I wanted to come to.
So Marge will expand on this kind of technical point. Anybody else can help us here?
Because
following? Yeah, Lavangalati, you have to speak up a bit. Your voice is a bit faint.
I was thinking, because the activities are authorized by the spiritual master.
Yes, in one sense, yes. I mean, that's a given. That's a given. Okay. Anyway, everything we do is authorized by the parampara.
Because your motive is to attain bhava.
Yeah, that should be the motive. That's what Mars should, as he said, that should be the internal quest, is that you want to achieve love. Without
Because-
that, your activities are more or less, as though they're kind of getting a lot of benefit, no doubt. Marge said, he uses the term, the slow boat to bhava.
Yeah, it's like putting an iron rod in fire. It takes on the qualities of fire.
Yeah, if our internal disposition is
Yeah.
there as well. You know, it's not just
Yeah.
by, again, it's not just by filling in the sadhana chart, you're going to get bhava.
No.
If you put that in, if I fill in my sadhana chart every week for 2 weeks, I'm going to get bhava in 4 weeks.
Don't tell them that. I need them to fill up sadhana.
That's so nice. That'll be lovely, Muli Prabhu. Can't we do that?
To speak
Send it
to
to
you.
Krishna, and Krishna can, tell us how we stand.
Yeah,
It's just sincere endeavor then. It's just sincere endeavor.
yeah, but
Yeah,
specific, yeah,
definitely.
and sincere means an internal disposition.
Yeah.
It's the sincerity is not, it's not like your external senses are sincere. You
No.
are sincere.
Transformation has to happen.
Yeah. It's quite fascinating, isn't it? What Marge is how
It has to come from you, really, in you.
Yeah. You have to want it. That's the main thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Prabhu,
Yeah.
I was just I don't know, I remember this. Even a stone, when the water drips, even you can make a hole in the stone. So likewise, maybe this sadhana, old material, but then it will make a hole in our heart so that Krishna can come in.
Yeah, but that hole will be a lot quicker if we're internally developing a desire to attain Krishna as well.
Yeah, of course, yes.
Otherwise-
Yeah, without that, no. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like I'm saying, just like the rainfall.
Yeah. Anyway, let's read on a bit and see if we can understand this a bit more, a bit clearer.
Yes.
So I think you can continue. Who's reading? Chandravali, was it?
I was reading, yeah.
You can read a little bit more.
Okay. In the meeting, no, where was I? I can't remember now.
That's okay, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In meeting these challenges, we begin by responding to how bhakti can be generated by sadhana. This doubt can be recast in the following way. According to Rupa Goswami, washing the temple floor, an activity glorified daily in Sri Gurvastakam, which with the words of Mandira Marjanandu, can awaken bhav in Vaishnavas. But there are so many floors being washed worldwide by so many non-devotees, and that washing never awakens devotion in any cleanness. What makes the floor washing in the temple an activity that eventually awakens ecstasy in a devotee? Non-devotional philosophers like Jaimini will downgrade acts dedicated to the Supreme, such as washing the temple floor, by answering that they are the best kind of good karma, karma that has the power to purify the mind, but with which cannot invoke transcendence. Misconception like this may be dispelled in two ways: by studying the conducts of transcendentalists and by understanding the teaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Let us consider the former, the conduct of sadhus. Negative logic rightly questions why great soul, freed of identification with the body and mind, would engage in devotional service if it were nothing more than material senses interacting with material objects. Why, after attaining liberation from material entanglement, would such souls accept new karmic entanglement? Certainly they would not. The many ways of understanding the Atmaram verse is overwhelming evidence of this. Moreover, Krishna indicates that even practicing devotees' advancement in Krishna consciousness gradually learn to discern spirit from matter. He says, a person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening all or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with these objects and that he is aloof from them. Considering the conduct of both the liberated and the non-liberated devotees, one is led to conclude that there must be more to bhakti than merely the interaction between senses and sense objects.
Right, so Marge is just building the argument here, and then the next, now he will kind of address it. So he's mentioned like some persons see the activities that a bhakti does by one, for instance, washing the temple. They see it as karmic activity. So, and then Marge goes on to, he quotes from the Bhagavad Gita that actually the soul doesn't anything at all. So a person, divine content, goes seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, etc. He himself does nothing at all. So that may be the doubt, that it may be seen, yeah, in a mundane way. Yeah, it's quite quite deep, because in one sense we've just been previously speaking about that may be a misconception of a sadhaka, him or herself. That if I do these activities, if I'm in on themselves, that will give, that's enough. But again, as we keep saying, it has to be accompanied by an internal desire. Anyone else? Vamsiva, are you out there? I thought I saw you come in.
Yes, I'm here, Prabhu.
Yeah, any comments on this?
No. Yeah, Maharaj is really going he's really going step by step here.
Yeah.
He's elaborating on things that I think none of us have ever considered before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why perhaps we better just read on a bit.
Yeah, I think because the next 2 pages are going to be elaborating on this more. I think then it will be clearer for everybody.
Yeah. So just Marge is building an argument here. He's building an argument which is going to take the pieces next. So he's not establishing what we just read as the correct understanding. That's called. That's how it's done in Brahmasam in the Vedanta Sutra. Srila Vyasadeva, he presents the arguments first from the opposing side. There's a Sanskrit word for it. Once you've established that, then you take it to pieces. That's in the Brahma Sutras, it's organized like that. Like Vyasadeva speaks the philosophy of the Buddhists, he speaks the philosophy of Jains, he speaks the philosophy of the impersonalists. And sometimes, unless you're attentive, it looks like what he's saying is what is the truth. You have to realize it's not. He's presenting the arguments against. Anyway, let's read on. Vamsiva, please, you can read for us. Continue reading.
Okay.
Page 119.
Considering the conduct of both the liberated and the non-liberated devotees, one is led to conclude that there must be more to bhakti than merely the interaction between senses and sense objects. Now let us consider Gauranga's opinion on this matter. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu directly addresses this paradox in his instructions to Rupa Goswami. He says, Pramanda Brahmite Kuna Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Bij. According to their karma, all living entities are wandering throughout the entire universe. Out of many millions of wandering living entities, one who is very fortunate gets an opportunity to associate with a bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. By the mercy of both Krishna and the spiritual master, such a person receives the seed of the creeper of devotional service. The essential message of the Lord's teaching is that devotion from the heart of the spiritual master in the form of transcendental knowledge enters the heart of a devotee, wherein it manifests as faith and further activates the internally existing bhakti. This transfer of devotion from guru to disciple is known as gifting the seed of the creeper of devotion. The Lord continues, Mali haya kare se bija arupan, shravana kirtan jalik karaye sachan. When a person receives the seed of devotional service, he should take care of it by becoming a gardener and sowing the seed in his heart. If he waters the seed gradually by the process of Shravan and Kirtan, hearing and chanting, the seed will begin to sprout. We now call the reader's attention to the following. When the process of chanting and hearing about Krishna waters that seed, bhakti proportionately spreads its influence throughout the devotee's body, empowering his acts with devotion. The effect of bhakti upon the sincere devotee's senses is to spiritualize them and cause them to attain a qualitative oneness, tad bhava or tadatmyam, with bhakti's nature. In this way, corporeal activities done for Krishna become devotional service. Copper wire is transformed by the electricity of conducts. Similarly, the activities of a practitioner are made spiritual by the strength of his devotion. The transformation brought about in a devotee's body and mind has already been explained in relation to the spiritualization of karma, offenses, and false ego. However, we should note that the effectiveness of spiritualization is dependent on the strength of a practitioner's faith. There is a proportional relationship between the two. Lord Krishna explains this to Brahma. Dharma manyan parityaja mamekam bhaja vishvavasan yadrishi shraddha siddhir bhavati tadrishi. Abandoning all meritorious performances, serve me with faith. The realization will correspond to the nature of one's faith. The arguments above were in response to the first doubt about the definition of sadhana, which was how spiritual bhakti is generated by physical actions. In summary, our answer is, bhakti is not generated by physical acts. Rather, a devotee's senses and activities are surcharged with a devotion radiating from his heart, and it is that devotion which transforms activities into devotional service in proportion to the nature of the practitioner's faith.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps in your own words, Vamsi Bhakti, you can just say what's being explained here, if you like.
Okay, I'll try. I'll try. Yeah, so basically, Maharaj is explaining that. Basically, describing how he's explaining how ordinary acts become devotional service. So he's saying that actually bhakti is already in the heart of everybody, is dormant, and it's awakened when the spiritual master, basically, when he gives instructions on devotional service. When he's giving these instructions on devotional service, which is transcendental knowledge, basically. So when he's giving this knowledge, it is this, he's basically awakening that devotion in the heart with his own devotion. Bhaktya sanjayate bhaktya, like that. So that made me realize that often when you hear about the spiritual master planting the seed of devotion, we tend to take it a bit literally. So we tend to think that the cause of bhakti is external, but actually, as we know, the seed of devotion, the seed of the devotional kripa is actually those transcendental instructions that he's giving, that transcendental knowledge that he's giving, and that is actually awakening the devotion in the heart. So so when that happens, that's what we call that's when the devotional kripa is sprouting, when we get those instructions, that transcendental knowledge from the guru. And then next bit, Maharaj quotes another verse from CC where he says, then we have to water that seed, which is basically water that little bit of devotion that has been awakened by this transcendental knowledge that the Guru has given. So how do we water it? We water it by hearing and chanting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I found really nice is that he describes basically that something that I practically experienced, that if I don't do proper hearing and chanting, my service is not going to be good. It's not that my consciousness when I'm doing for example, when I'm doing deity worship is not going to be good. But when I do hearing and chant, he's saying to do hearing and chanting, you're watering the creeper of devotion. And then what's happening, if you're watering the creeper of devotion, that means the devotion within our heart is coming out more. It's coming out more and more. So then when that happens, then that bhakti, Maharaj says, it will spread throughout one's body and so charges our activities with devotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So bhakti sanjayati bhakta.
Yes, in that way, all our activities become bhakti. Because the thing is, because he makes the important point is that in this way, corporeal activities done for Krishna become devotional service. So just like Mother Lavanga was saying earlier, and you were saying also that intention has to be there when you're doing service. You're doing it for Krishna. So you can only, you can only have that intention if you're doing proper hearing and chanting.
And that's the devotional aspect, and also mentions it also, which is accompanied with faith.
Yeah, and then he talks about faith, yeah.
So these two, for instance, cleaning the temple room, if it's the seed of that instruction to engage in devotion is coming from the Guru, so you're doing it with appreciation, you're doing it with a sense of devotion, and you've got faith in the process. So that is devotion, and that will give rise to more devotion.
So then I guess this also explains how, like, we get people who are not doing it, they're not practicing bhakti, but they end up cleaning the temple room floor, for example. So that probably explains that. That's why they're not necessarily practicing bhakti, but by doing that, again, bhakti unnati sukriti, right?
Yeah, it's very interesting because in our temple, often we pay people to clean the stairs, but they don't become ecstatic bhava just generally. They clean, but saves a stair. I mean, we give respect to them. They're coming in, they're friendly devotees, but they're not sadhakas, so they clean the stairs. But say if a brahmachari cleans the stairs with the right mood, he's happy to do it. That is a devotional act and will lead to more devotion.
Perfect.
But someone's cleaning the stairs and they don't have faith and they're not really doing any sadhana. They can clean, they're not going to necessarily, they're not going to become ecstatic devotees. But a devotee who's not, like let's say, for example, brahmachari is told to clean the stairs, if he's in the right consciousness, that can be a source of devotion if he does it with devotion. Just like, just remembering now where one of Radhanath Maharaj is given he speaks on this point, and he speaks about cleaning the temple. He really puts his whole emotions in, you clean the temple. He really emphasizes doing it for Krishna. I was just thinking, as you were speaking, Vamsi Bhakti, I was just thinking, like sometimes we can have all, we do the sadhana, we do a hearing and chanting, but then we may forget and we just fall in to doing, as senses are just doing the job of dressing the deities, it may be. But internally, we've forgotten the devotional aspect of it. You understand? So we may oscillate. But sometimes we do devotional activities, and if we're in the right consciousness, we can really feel the devotional result from it. But other times we may just fall into doing just like signing what we have to do. You understand? We may just come away from that. We may forget. And it's easy done, especially if we're doing the same activity every day. That's why it's very important that we
hear and chant.
They should, that we're daily hearing Bhagavatam and we're daily hearing, so we can tune in our internals, so we can get we can do everything we do with a sense of devotion, and then we will. then we will experience devotion.
That's why Maharaj says to chant some rounds before you go on the altar. You get your consciousness right, you know.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
run,
Yeah.
you runs, you really are like focused in a way.
Yeah, for example. The next page is a wonderful summary of, Marge gives a wonderful summary of what he's explaining here. So let's get there. We've got 6 minutes left. Bit of free. So anyone who's not read would like to read. Let me
Why don't you read with the proper?
okay, I don't know if it'd be proper, but where do we leave off? We
Why we have shown how bhakti correlates. End of 121.
okay. So I'll just go on to 122, yeah?
No, it's right at the bottom. We haven't done that bit on page
Okay,
1.
yeah, the 4 stars, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we have shown that how bhakti correlates to a devotee's acts of devotion. We have yet to answer the question how these acts generate bhava. We shall give our response in this section. The principle, here is again, bhaktya sanjataya bhakta. And applied to the question of how sadhana causes bhava can be understood by a phenomena known as circular causality. In essence, circular causality is known as the mutual interaction of cause and effect. More explicitly, it is a link between a cause and its effect, in which the effect circles back to reinforce the cause. In the ideal circular causality, circular causality represents perpetual motion. Applied to how sadhana bhakti generates bhava bhakti, circular causality looks like this. Now, just before the class, I looked up online circular causality, and it's used in quite a lot of management ethos and training. Yeah, you can look at it in your own time. You can find out more. But anyway, let's read on. So this is on the screen here. You can see it. Those who don't have the book, this quote is there. Okay. The operative cause bhakti, received from the guru, mention that, awakens eternal bhakti in the disciple's heart, which as the immediate cause inspires an effect in the form of the devotee's acts of sadhana bhakti that are further energized by bhakti from the devotee's heart. This bhakti as effect then feeds back to further purify the sadhaka's heart, increasing the flow of bhakti in the form of a cause, which then inspires more significant bhakti effects in the form of bhakti imbued acts of devotion. This cycle of bhakti in the heart causes bhakti saturated acts to release increased bhakti from the heart. Eventually leads to awakening of bhava bhakti, which then becomes the cause of bhava inspired acts. These activities of bhava bhakti feed back and cultivate bhava, which in a similar way quickly awakens prema, and in its acts of devotion, thus perpetuating a circular causality of bhakti ad infinitum. All right. Any comments on that? Or
need to read it and reread it and reread it and digest it.
well,
How do we take a screenshot of this?
go ahead.
Yeah, how do we take it? I don't know. Do I just press that screen thing? That's all.
I don't know what computer you have.
Do you have your phone? Why did you take
No,
picture?
it's a computer.
Hare Krishna,
I will take it and I'll send it to you.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks.
So,
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I've got one question with regards to the previous discussion about so if a cleaner is doing like temple cleaning,
Yeah.
does he, I mean, I was told that Krishna never forgets even a little service that somebody does. Would that not slowly elevate towards bhakti, slowly?
Yeah, you've used the word slowly.
Yeah.
Very slowly.
Very slowly, okay.
Slow.
But it does have some effect, right?
Yeah, but unless the person cleans, for instance, if the person cleaning the stairs starts coming to class, and starts hearing from devotees, starts inquiring from devotees, you know, then that's something else. But if they're just coming, there's so many people we come to our temple, they come to fix the electricity, they clean the stairs, but they become, in one sense, they do bhakti or mukhi sukriti. If they become friendly to the Vaishnavas, then that will put them in good stead.
Yes.
So at some point in the future, in the next life, when they become, they will be spontaneously attracted to bhakti and to the devotees.
Yeah, because it was interesting. I went to the manor on yesterday, and there was this little girl, and the arti was going on. The mother was sitting. This girl was literally standing by right close to the altar, and she was just staring, and she was smiling, and then suddenly, you know, the pujari gave her a flower, and she had the flower in her hand, and then she's circumambulating the flower to the lordships, and she was like doing arti herself, and she's literally probably 2.5 or 3 years old. And I was like awestruck that, oh my God, this is probably from her previous birth that she's so attracted. Somehow or the other, she's just, you know, come there and she's playing her obeisances and she's doing the arti. So I was really awestruck with that.
It's nice to see that's very inspiring, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very.
So Prabhupada would often comment like that as well when he would see young children playing the banga or play cartels. Then he would comment, yes, just see, this is from a previous life.
Yeah.
Yes, very inspiring to see. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so in essence, if what time, 1 minute, I can try and reflect back on what Marge is describing here, is that the activities we do, it's been inspired by the parampara. It's been, we've received a seed from the Guru. So for that in itself, and if we do it with that understanding and faith, then that we have bhakti, then that will generate bhakti. Bhakta sanjataya bhakta. That will generate bhakti. Now that bhakti, as I say, as you surrender, as you take one step towards Krishna, Krishna takes the 100 steps towards you. So you do devotional activities. You do devotional activities, not just externally. Your heart has a sense of devotion. Then that will give rise to devotion. Now that devotion will in itself nourish the original devotion by which you originally did that activity. You follow? And it just becomes thicker and more condensed. It kind of feeds each other. Yeah. And it becomes more condensed. You follow? If you do bhakti inspired service, that will inspire bhakti, and that bhakti will nourish you. And then when you do that same service again, you'll have more devotion. If you're in the right consciousness, if you do more devotion, and that will give rise to more devotion. And that will give rise to more. You follow?
Yeah.
That's what ad infinitum. And I was reading earlier that this is the phenomena of the spiritual realm. It's like ever increasing, you know, it's like it's not a material thing, it's completely spiritual. It just increases ad infinitum, as Maharaj says at the end. Yeah.
And adding as well, as you're saying as well, you develop the taste.
Yeah. Now this is all I guess it's gone 7 o'clock. Yeah. So this is why this will happen if we're chanting attentively and not offending the holy name. At least we're not intentionally offending the holy name. We're not offending Vaishnavas. All these things will not make all of this very clear. Things, then it's something different. So we have to make sure we're avoiding the offenses to the holy name. We're not offending Vaishnavas. And then this will be the natural result of our devotionals, of our sadhana bhakti. But even if we, let's not get into discussion of Vaishnava right now. It's 2:07. But all right, perhaps we stop there, if that's okay with everyone. Now, and so a little bit technical, but I think we're doing quite well. We're taking it step by step, and we're trying to understand it as best we can. And next week, we'll discuss more on this subject, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you, Murli Prabhu. His grace.
Hare Krishna.
Murli Prabhu ki.
Krishna kripa sindhu eva cha
Patitanam pavanebhyo
Jai
Vaishnavebhyo
Shri
namo namaha.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Ki jai. Hari Bol, everyone.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.